Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a series, supposedly a limited Disney Plus series. It's thought to be getting a second series now, or season, however you want to call it. But by and large, a lot of these projects, and I believe including Boba Fett, have been developed from movies. So, in the age of streaming, movies cost a lot of money, although, of course, now even these streaming series cost ridiculous sums of money, but they've condensed them down into these limited series. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is no different to that either. In fact, Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to be a movie trilogy. That was planned before the Disney Plus series that it got reworked into. And we know that this applies to other projects. We knew that this applied to Boba Fett. There had been so many rumours surrounding that for so long. And then it just obviously developed into what it became. In fact, I think it first, realistically, developed into The Mandalorian. And then because The Mandalorian was so successful, they then wanted to capitalise on that with Boba Fett. Now, that's just my own personal speculation, but a lot of the traits that we apply to Boba Fett, generally speaking, in our headcanon, is what the traits that the Mandalorian actually had, and not what Boba Fett ended up having in his own series. So these are always interesting things to take a look at when we get revealed to us what was to be and what eventually, became of the project. So Obi-Wan Kenobi movie trilogy was planned before Disney Plus. This is an exclusive to the direct, so kudos to them. But Obi-Wan Kenobi is wrapped up on Disney Plus, bringing back Ewan McGregor as the titular character, telling the story of how he was forced off of Tatooine between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and of course pitting him against former Padawan learner Darth Vader. And the series as a whole, they say, proved to be extremely popular amongst fans. I don't know whether that is the case. Who knows? They say that it broke viewership records on the streaming platform. I haven't taken a look to verify this from the sort of Samba TV records. Because Samba TV is like an independent way to verify at least some viewing figures. And that's how we know that, say, the likes of Ms. Marvel is a bomb currently with viewership figures, because we can directly compare Samba TV's records with other Marvel products. And they say, however, despite its success, a portion of the Star Wars fan base has expressed that the show would have been better served as a standalone film. And originally, that was exactly Lucasfilm's plan. Now, I would say, I would say that it absolutely needed more time. Whether that equates to a film or not, I don't know, but it definitely needed more time. Obviously, in some people's eyes, it needed a lot more than just time. But for me, one of the things that it just didn't have was the necessary fleshing out of certain characters. Reva, for instance, is not a character. She is a plot point. She's just the reason why people do certain things in the series. And I feel like Lucasfilm on a whole have, really done a number on the actress, fed her to the wolves, so to speak. It's not the actress's fault that she was given such crap characterization. And also very little motivation. And also contradictory motivation. It's not her fault. But I feel if they had given at least, a few more episodes, that would have helped. And I feel if they had restructured some of the reveals of her past early on in the series, that would have helped as well. Stephen Daldry and Hossein Amini were brought on to direct and write the film, respectively. And before the project shifted into an episodic format with the launch of Disney Plus in 2019, Joby Harold was subsequently brought on to take over as head writer, paving the way for the version director Deborah Chow eventually brought to Disney+. Again, that's not technically true, because they had to rework quite a lot, even as they had written it out as this episodic format. A lot of this was actually changed, and we know that they went back for rewrites and reshoots. So that's not strictly true. Now, the project's very first writer has opened up about how his plan for Obi-Wan Kenobi's story didn't just comprise of one theatrical feature, but 3. It was going to be a trilogy, which is quite insane, to be honest. And I tell you what, interesting that he's coming out to say this, because Disney are quite litigious. And I don't know where his contracts stand on these things, but let's take a look and see what he says. So he says, right, so not at all, none. I wrote the film that they based the show on. So yeah, I spent like a year and a half working on it. And then, when the decision was made not to make any more spin-off films after Solo came out, so again, once again confirming what everyone knew to be the case, Solo bombed and Disney shit their pants, I left the project and went on to other things. Joby came on and took my scripts and turned it from 2 hours into 6. So I did not work with them at all. I just got credit for the episodes because it was all my stuff. So he says this. So when I pitched my Obi-Wan story to Lucasfilm, I said, there's actually 3 stories here, because there's 3 different evolutions that the character has to make in order to go from Obi-Wan to Ben. And the first one was the first movie, which was the show. So that's interesting. That was going to just be one movie, the show. He says, which was surrender to the will of the Force, transport your will, surrender your will, leave the kid alone. Interesting. So then, the second movie was thinking about where Kenobi ends up. And one of the most powerful and probably the most powerful moments in all of Obi-Wan's story is that moment where he sacrifices himself in A New Hope. Great moment. And yeah, I mean, it is. Like, that is the most powerful moment, I guess, of Obi-Wan's story overall. You know, he gives his life. I've become more powerful, blah, blah, blah. And then he just goes, disappears. Now, moving on further from this, he says, you know, it makes you cry. But if you stop and think about it, it's a pretty sudden thing to just kind of go be, fighting a guy to see Luke and go, I'm going to die. You know, that to me, that required forethought. That required pre-acceptance that this was going to happen. I mean, it did seem planned. It was a premeditated move. So I'll agree with that. You know, this writer does seem to understand some elements. So again, it's one of those universal things we all struggle with, to come to terms with our own mortality. So, that was the second step of the evolution for me. That Obi-Wan now has to come to terms with his own mortality. Somehow in a prophecy, or Qui-Gon telling him, there's going to come a moment where you're going to have to sacrifice yourself for the good. And then Obi-Wan is like, what? No, 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 no. I'm here to help. I can't, no. And get him to that point where Obi-Wan has accepted the idea that he's going to die. And that he's going to die willingly at a crucial moment. And you will know when that moment presents itself. So that when that moment comes up in A New Hope, you understand he's recognizing he's been on this journey already. And he's waiting for this moment. And that's how he's able to make it so easily. To do this sacrifice and die. So that to me was the second evolution. The second film. That's a very interesting way to take a second film. You know, as this being like a trilogy. I don't hate that idea at all. I think it makes some sense. Not wholly necessary for the character's journey. But it's an interesting one to explore if you are forcing a story out. Like Lucasfilm seemed to have been doing. So for me, if I have anything to do with the second season of Obi-Wan, that's the character's evolution that I would take him on. That to me is really interesting and, like I said, universal. And then he says some other little bits. So the writer also revealed that both Lucasfilm and McGregor were on board with the idea. Oh, absolutely, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Ewan was on board, everyone. We were like, yeah, ready to go. And we were so excited about it too. It's a great story to tell, right? It's such a fitting character, and Ewan is so fantastic at it, and he's the perfect age, everything. And then they still shat the bed on it. So it can't have been that excited. It was just dying to be done, you know. Unfortunately, it was Solo that changed the direction of the system. I like Solo, personally, but it hadn't made a lot of money. It's crazy in some ways to think about it, how it was directed by one of the best filmmakers working today, but just because it didn't hit a certain number, they just had to rethink, and again, way above my pay grade, but it certainly crushed us. Devastated. Absolutely devastated. But that's the business, you know? Highs and lows. I'm glad it got made. I'm glad the show got made. I'm proud of my story that got told. I'm glad my characters are all through it. And I'm glad I got credit for it. I wish they'd been able to make my movies. So it doesn't reveal what the third movie would have been, which is a bit of annoyance. And I would say, look, as much as he seems to understand Obi-Wan and sort of the journey that he's going to be going on, or went on anyway, if all of his characters are there and you've got the useless character of Reva, I pray to God that this individual's script had a better characterization of Reva, because she wasn't a fleshed out individual. She's a bit worthless, to be honest, in the show. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Interesting stuff. Also, ladies and gentlemen, consider checking out my Teespring store. Supporting the channel via this way does go a long way. But also, not only that, you do get to wear some awesome merch. These are one-of-a-kind designs designed for me by my graphic designer. We, of course, have our Clown World line, which is in mugs, hoodies, t-shirts. We've got Space Jeebus. And then for something a little bit different, we, of course, have right down at the bottom right here, we have our Pulsar GTIR. Also, ladies and gentlemen, consider checking out and supporting my second channel, which is Car Nonsense. This is a vlog and car channel. You can find links to this in the description box, along with my Teespring. Please do consider supporting.